Welcome to another episode of Chasing Crazy, an episode that I thought I probably would never be making, especially not this early on in my career. And this episode is about my DNF yesterday at Ballarat Marathon, which was my first DNF, which stands for did not finish. So I did not get through the whole marathon, and taking this as a chance to reflect on it and talk about why I didn't finish and talk about the day and what went wrong and just unwrap it all and a chance for myself to go through it as well. So normally this podcast was just an idea of me to interview one of my friends who ran 200 kilometers around a track, but to upload it I had to create a name and an image for the podcast, for the account. And so I've made the idea and decided to interview people who are doing crazy things in the running world and the physical endurance world as well. Because I've got a few friends that have some big things coming up, and I want to talk to them, and a few friends that have done really big things, which are really interesting and motivating, and just help dive into the mind in an informal way of people that are doing crazy things or chasing crazy. But for some reason, the second episode of this is going to be about me not finishing a marathon, which is the first time that's ever happened to me. And this is something I never thought I'd be talking about, especially this early on in my running career. Now, I got the opportunity to pace yesterday at the Ballarat Marathon in the 3 hour group. And the reason I got this opportunity was because in February at Kyoto, I ran a PB of 2 hours and 42 minutes and 59 seconds in the marathon in Kyoto. And then I was reached out to see if I'd like to pace at the Ballarat Marathon and became a part of the pacing team at Ballarat. Now, preparing for this marathon, obviously I was very fit from my marathon in February, and I didn't stop running whatsoever afterwards. If anything, I almost increased my load, but not specifically marathon training. So when I was overseas and I signed up for the Kyoto Marathon, I also signed up for the UTA 100, which is a 100 kilometer ultra race through the trails in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales with 4,500 meters elevation. So in 3 weeks' time, I'll run that event. And whilst training for this 3 hour pacing gig, I was also training for a 100 kilometer trail race through the Blue Mountains with 4,500 meters elevation. So leading into this run, I had a heavy training load, especially with elevation, stair runs, trail running, but still keeping up my aerobic base. This did not mean I wasn't ready for the marathon. I still had a typical deload for this marathon and treated this like I was running the marathon at a 3 hour pace, which is 17 minutes slower than what I did a couple months ago. So, as you might know, if you've run marathons, that is a very significant amount. And I thought it would be a walk in the park. Little did I know. So heading into this marathon, the carb load was exactly what I would normally do. I felt like I hit the carb load just as good, or, just as I would normally would. And I don't typically feel great throughout a carb load. And I didn't feel great throughout this one, especially on day one of my carb load. And I felt like it was harder to eat more. So I was having more liquid carbs. But I still hit my targets, whether I felt good during it or not. And I typically wean off the carb load come the day before the race, which is exactly what I did. And I started feeling good again, which is what normally happens in my previous marathon races. But heading into the event, I think I was having some sleeps that weren't great, waking up a little bit sweaty or throughout the night, and I was kind of ignoring it. I would look at my Garmin and read the sleep score or my training for readiness for training, sorry, that would be a bit lower than it should have been. And just decided to ignore it because I'm a big believer in if you tell yourself you feel great, then you'll feel great. If you tell yourself you feel bad, then you'll feel bad. So heading into this event, like any other event, I was telling myself that I would feel great. And I was telling myself I would pace a perfect marathon, which would be 15 seconds before the 3 hour mark, so 2:59:45. And I was keen to get to this race and perform. So the morning of race, we woke up at 4 a.m. because the marathon was in Ballarat. And I had a broken sleep the night before, but it didn't worry me too much. I picked up Billy, my mate, who also ran the marathon. Congratulations to Billy on his first marathon. And we headed to Ballarat. Now, the first thing I did when I got to Ballarat is stopped at a service station and got some Hydrolyte and some Gaviscon because even in the drive up, I was having indigestion, which is not normal for me. During the race, a bit of indigestion is normal and I can battle through it. But prior to, I was feeling a little bit off. So, smash the Gaviscon, which I typically would never do. I just needed to hide the symptoms from myself for the next 6 hours to get through this day. And you know what? I felt not too bad all the way up until the start line. We had our pacing meeting, picked up all our gear, met the other people in the pacing team, and then headed to the start line. I felt like I was hydrated, fueled, had plenty of salt, and I was ready to run a sub 3 hour marathon. I met some of my friends at the start line who were going for sub 3 and the group that was going to run with me, and everyone was in good spirits as they should be. And look, we kicked off the marathon perfectly. We headed into it. The group was up and about. I was talking to the group almost the whole time. You know, we're talking about drink stations and talking about fueling and just getting around each other. Pretty much everyone was feeling good. But at the start of the race, I had this really odd feeling in my feet. I couldn't really feel my feet. They started to go numb with pins and needles straight away. And I was wiggling my toes to make sure I was trying to get blood flow there, but the feeling did not start to come back. So I figured I'm just warming up and it will come. And I wore my Alpha Fly 3s, the same shoes I wore at the Kyoto Marathon, and the same shoes that I wore in a training run that week. So it wasn't like I hadn't put them on for a while. And besides that, I felt pretty good. And that was like 500 meters to a kilometer into the race, in which I started feeling my feet were going numb. And I just trusted that blood flow would go back to them. Now, when I was running Kyoto Marathon, I was wearing the Alpha Fly 3s as well. And about 32 kilometers in, I had this ache in my bottom right calf and Achilles. And it felt like that at any point, my right calf and Achilles were just going to go. But I had faith in my body that it would hold up. And I constantly reassured myself with positive self talk that I was going to make it through the marathon. And my right calf and Achilles wasn't going to go in. Now, in this run, when I wasn't feeling my feet 2 kilometers into the run, I had that feeling in both of my calf and Achilles from 2 to 3 kilometers into the marathon. And that's not a good sign when you've got 40 kilometers to do. So I had faith that my body was just warming up and I'd get the feeling back in my feet and the pain in my calf and Achilles on both sides would both go away, 5 to 6 Ks in. So as a group, we probably 20 of us. I didn't count. I was at the front of the group, maybe more. We're all heading in the right direction towards a sub 3 marathon, and we were hitting our splits perfectly. So we were pretty much just ahead of time, and I started feeling pretty sick as well around 5, 6 kilometers in. So there was plenty of things that were going through my head. You know, why am I feeling sick now? Why is my body hurting now? This should be happening at 30, 35 kilometers. When you're in the midst of it and you're ready to tackle the brutal end of the marathon. But I was in that situation 5 to 6 kilometers into the marathon, and it had almost felt like I'd already ran 40 Ks. So with the Ballarat Marathon, you run this loop. It's a 21.1 kilometer loop that you run twice. So as you're running your first loop, you're seeing the 26, 27K markers. And so when you're 10Ks in, you're also seeing the 31, 32 kilometer markers. So you literally see that and think, I have to run another 21Ks to get back to that, which realistically should not have been an issue for me, but it was playing on my mind considering I was hurting so early on in this run. And besides that, I still had faith in my body. And with some positive self talk, I told myself that I will get through this marathon and get everyone else through this marathon, as typically this big group of people that are running with you are putting all their faith in you that you get them through and meet their goal, which might be a lifetime goal. So it feels like there's a bit of pressure on you, but I had every bit of confidence in myself that I was going to run the perfect marathon and get these people over the line pre-race. Now, 5 to 10 kilometer mark, I battled in my head between, am I feeling crap or am I all good? Am I sick or am I right? And what is going on with my legs? So the feeling never came back to my legs, although we were hitting perfect split. So the group was up and about, and a couple of my mates were in the group. And I said, how are we feeling? And shout out Flynn. Flynn said, mate, I'm feeling great. And then Ben said, yeah, I'm feeling it. This would have been 15 to 20 Ks in. And I remember thinking to myself, I feel cooked. Like my body was just battling. I felt sick. Felt like both my calves were gonna go. And I just told them, yeah, I feel great. And I was telling myself I feel great every kilometer at a time. We're gonna get through this. Now, realistically, thinking about it, I think from maybe 10 to 15 Ks in, I knew at that point that I wasn't going to get through 42 kilometers at a 4 minute 15 pace, which is the pace true to the course, not true to your watch, that you have to run. So the watch pace might be anywhere from 4:10 to 4:13, I would say, 4:10 to 4:13. Just because typically the course is longer than what your GPS on your Garmin or Apple Watch is going to say. So we were holding the pace perfectly, but I knew at some point I was not going to make it. And unfortunately, I thought this would never happen. And the reason I was so shattered about it is because of the fact that I was pacing. If this was my own race, I 100% would have just slowed down and managed it and battled through. But thinking about back to it, the slowdown would have had to be below 5 minute Ks just for how sick I felt, and both my calves felt like they were going to give way at literally any point. Now, the funny thing about this is that maybe 3 days ago, I was listening to a podcast by Tommy Lewis. His podcast is called That's Runnable, and he was talking about his first DNF. And while I was listening to this podcast, I remember thinking, I will never DNF. And literally 2 days later, here I am almost reenacting his podcast about the first time he DNF'd. I don't know if that planted something in my mind, But for some reason, 2 days after I listened to that, here we are. Yeah, so about 15 to 20 Ks for me was just a battle. I remember Flynn saying, "This is going so quick, how good is this?" And me thinking every kilometre is taking forever for me, and which is not normally the case in a marathon. So something was seriously wrong, and every single moment of the marathon, I was battling with the fact that I'm going to have to pull out as the pacer, which I felt one was really embarrassing, two, letting down everyone that I was pacing, and three, defining my abilities as a pacer. We did hit everything perfectly. I believe we came in on the half marathon mark at a perfect time. And we kept running, and everyone was up and about. So happy, like I said. But around the 25, 26K mark, I had made the decision. I just felt so sick, and both my calves were literally going to blow up. So Devon, who was one of the other 3 hour pacers, there was four of us. He was about 20 meters ahead of me, maybe more, 50. And I saw the opportunity to pass the group onto him because I thought I can either battle through these next few kilometers and be sick or blow up or injure myself. And then they're just going to have no one, these 25 people running with me. And I would be the reason why their race was cooked. But I saw Devon about 50 meters ahead, and I shouted out to him and sprinted up to him. And I said, "Look, Devon, I'm going to go to the toilet. I'm going to be sick. I'll try and catch back up to the group, but I've got a group of about 25 people behind you. Do you mind drifting back just a little bit and floating with them?" And he was like, "Yeah, no worries." There was two other 3 hour paces in front of him. So we had this big, good distance of all these people running sub 3, and everyone was around a pacer. So I said to the group, "Guys, I'm going to the toilet. This is Devon." This is while we're running. I said, "That's Devon. He's going to take you through. I'm going to try and catch back up to you guys. Just hold a steady pace. Don't speed up to him. He'll slow down to you." And happy days. So I went and took a piss. Then I started to run again, and my calves were like, "Nah, this isn't happening." Ran about 300 meters until the closest Portaloo. Went to the toilet in there. Felt seriously crook. Was like, "Is this going to be it? Am I going to have to tell the pacing team that I've dropped out as a pacer?" And then I got out of the Portaloo and I started running again, and my calves were blown up. They weren't giving me more than 4-minute 35s at max effort. I felt sick all the way up to my chest, and I really just had to make the call to pull the pin. Not my proudest moment. In fact, probably one of my more embarrassing ones, knowing that I can run that pace quite easily on any normal day, and then going out after preparation and having that happen just destroyed me. I still couldn't feel my feet. They were numb literally the whole time until I'd stopped running and just sat down. It was the only point when blood had gone back to them. So I made the call, and I pulled off to the side, let my watch just run, because I thought, for some reason, is there some way I can get back into this? Couldn't get the flag off my back when I decided that was it. Called my friend because I didn't know who to call. So I called Richie, who I saw spectating, and I said, "Look, mate, I'm out. I can't. My calves are blown up. I'm sick." And he said, "Yeah, it's all right, mate. We'll meet you at the finish line." Jump on Google Maps. I was 4.5 Ks from the finish line, over an hour walk away. And at this point, I couldn't walk at a normal speed because my calves were cooked. Uh, by the time I'd walk back, my group was going to be finished. And I just thought that can't happen. Luckily, this lovely family from Ballarat saw me and said, "Do you want to lift back, mate?" And I was like, "Yes, please. Thank you so much." So I jumped in the ute with this lovely family and we had a chat about everything that had just happened. And they dropped me off as close as they could to where I needed to be near the start line to go to my bag. And at that point, I filmed myself and made a little video of the feelings of what had just happened. Now, I haven't rewatched this video. There's a few here. So I'll play them over the screen as I watch them. But this is just the raw emotions of what happened in the moment and how I was feeling. I just DNF'd. 27 Ks in. Look, I had no feeling in my feet from like 2 Ks in, 5 Ks in, and I thought it would just come back, and then just felt sick. We hit every split perfectly. We had such a good group, and I just felt so sick. And DNF, there's nothing else to it. My first DNF. I'm extremely sorry to those that I was pacing. I did leave them in the good hands of Devon. The group was firing. Our splits were perfect. But yeah, I'm sorry to those guys. Thank you to the family that picked me up from the side of the road after being sick and having a double calf. This is the worst feeling. I just feel like I let the pace team down and the people I was pacing. If this was my own race, I'm sure I'd be disappointed, but this just sucks. I'm so sorry to those that I let down. It was a 3-hour run, and I feel like I could just do a 3-hour on any good day, and today just wasn't my day. So a double calf, being sick, and then a double calf has put me out of the race. And yeah, I never want to DNF again. This feels just fucking so shit. I'm sorry. So it's cooked. I was listening to a podcast 2 days ago about a DNF. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to DNF. I'll just always give it everything and get through. This fucking sucks. I feel like I'm disappointed in myself, but also there was no other option. Like, I don't even know what to think. I just want to jump in to add 2 things to feeling in that moment that I didn't mention there. One was how the flag was sitting. I don't know if mine was off, but every step I took, the flag would just hit me lightly in the back of my head, and I'd have to put my head forward and down for it not to happen. And that was just really annoying me. I don't know if it affected my run at all or anything. And the other was whilst I was running and when I pulled out, I remember just genuinely thinking, like, do I even like running? Like, why would anyone want to run a marathon? This is just stupid. Like, it sucks. And they're just some thoughts that I haven't had in a long time. I don't feel that way now, the next day. But that's how bad I was feeling. I was seriously questioning my enjoyment for the sport, which is ridiculous. That I was definitely shattered, and like I still am. In that moment, I had a massive, I was just a sad sack. And And I said in there, if it was my own race, I probably wouldn't be as disappointed. I don't actually know that, because if it was my own race that I prepared for 16 weeks for and that happened, I would be devastated. But the reason I'm devastated with this is because other people are relying on me. And I think that holds more weight, for me anyway. So I truly believe if it was my own race, I wouldn't have DNF'd, just because I would have slowed down. I would have walked across the finish line if I had to. But I was wearing the 3 hour flag and the pacing singlet and on the edge of a double calf injury. I just had to pull out. There wasn't another option. I wasn't going to get the group through 42 Ks at the 4 minute 15s that we had to run. It was either that or blow up and seriously injure myself or be sick on the course. And for that is the reason I pulled out completely. When you're a pacer, slowing down at 25 Ks to 5 minute Ks instead of 4 minute 15s is just not an option. And you can't have hundreds of people running past you as a 3 hour pacer. So at that point, DNFing was the only option. And also knowing that in 3 weeks' time, I have to run 100 kilometers through the Blue Mountains with 4,500 meters elevation probably helped the idea of not finishing the marathon and saving my calves from going through the next 15 Ks of the run. Now, I've got no idea why all this happened. I prepared as good as I would have in any other race. I'm not going to say perfectly, because I don't think there's any perfect preparation. The carb load was great. I felt a little bit off, but I just don't know where that came from. And the no feeling in my feet and the double calf just came out of nowhere. I have this confidence in myself that I go into every event that I'm going to do perfect or do better than what I set out to do. And that is really important, because it's positive self-talk and it's manifesting the fact that what you want to happen is going to happen. And it's always worked. I don't know if there was a creep of doubt in my mind going into this event. There definitely was 5 kilometers into the marathon. But yeah, I would call it a little bit of naivety and arrogance going into events, but I think that's super important to have if you want to achieve, big goals and or go above and beyond your goals. So I went into this race, with the same feelings as that, and I was just humbled. I always think the day is going to be my day, and yesterday I learned that not every day is my day. And it's an important lesson to understand that it's going to happen, but I'm not going to change my mindset on every day being my day, because I feel like that's gotten me so far and it will keep pushing me further, and it holds a high standard for myself. And yeah, the disappointment probably hurts more when I don't reach that standard like it did yesterday, but it's still not going to change how I view future events and going to events thinking that everything is going to turn out. I feel like the more I worry about it not turning out, the more likely that that's going to happen. Anyway, the family dropped me off and I went to my bag, took my pacing gear off, had to face the music with a few other pacers that were there, put my truckies on, had a good little chat with one of the 16-year-old kids that was pacing the 10K, and he pretty much told me, look, mate, we're all human. This stuff happens. And whilst I was being a little sad sack, that kind of hit and reminded me that, of course, I'm not a superhero and not everything goes your way all the time. So this is a perfect opportunity to learn that and look forward, go ahead. So I put my trackies on, my jumper and my slides, and I waddled down to the finish line and sat at the finish line for 10 minutes until my group came through. And shout out to Flynn. Flynn ran through a couple minutes before the 3 hours And as soon as Flynn ran through, my attitude changed. I stopped thinking, why me? Why have I had such a crappy day? And I was just super stoked for Flynn because Flynn has been training for this for a while now, and he put in a massive training block. And 8 weeks out, I actually started coaching him. Um, and as anyone would, he's faced, hiccups along the way, and he's overcome all of them. He even missed like a peak week training block from being sick. And I think I just got in his ear about running a sub 3. And I'm not sure if he originally believed that he could. And I'm just so glad that he went for it. And it wasn't until a couple of days out, I think, where he was confident enough to say, yeah, I'm going to go for it. And things went his way on the day. And I'm so happy for that. So shout out Flynn. He ran like a 2:58, which is unbelievable for his very first marathon. And I'm just so proud of him. And then, Ben came through, who was also running with us. And after Ben came through, Billy. And there's just multiple people that I saw at the finish line. Billy's one of my best mates, and he ran his first marathon. So I was super stoked for him. Seeing all the other people finish the line, some people crying, some people cheering, some people carrying on, some people just soaking it up. And it's just a great atmosphere at the finish line of a marathon because for some people it's a lifetime goal and they complete a lifetime goal. For some others, it's just like 4 months of hard work to get them through one day. So that was what turned my situation around, and it stopped being a little pity party and it became a celebration for others. So shout out to those people, especially Flynn, Ben, and Billy. And then, yeah, shout out Matt Elliott as well. He ran a PB, unreal time, and Hamish at the half marathon. So the group of us all met up the day before the marathon for a shakeout run, and everyone ran such a good race, except for me, but that's okay because yesterday was not my day. So following that, I didn't know how to post on social media about what happened because I document my stuff on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I didn't know how to announce the fact that I DNF'd in a marathon that should have been, moderately easy for me. So I put up a story after we'd driven home about DNFing. I really didn't want to talk about it at the time. I had a lot of messages from family and friends, and I just didn't want to talk about it because it was just bringing back like sadness. And I was so happy at that point after I'd seen other people cross the line and celebrated my friends. And I wanted the day to become like about that, which it was. And afterwards, we went to the pub in Geelong and saw all the boys that crossed the line, and then their friends came as well, celebrating their friends who had just run marathons and half marathons. And I was still, yeah, I wasn't a sad sack anymore. It wasn't why me. It wasn't just being depressed about what had happened. Obviously, it still was sinking in, but I was more happy for my friends and the other people that had crossed the line. Anyway, tomorrow, which was today, I decided I would open everyone messages on Instagram and Facebook and Messenger, and it was just crazy to see the amount of support that people were giving me after it. They didn't even know what had happened. I just posted that I DNF'd, and so many people reached out. I couldn't believe it, the amount of people. It was almost like more people reached out when I'd lost compared to if I had won. And it was amazing experience to see how people care for me, whether I win or lose. Because a lot of people understand how much this sport means to me. And although it wasn't my own race, something like this happening will obviously have an effect on how you're feeling at the time. And there's positives to seeing everything. And one of the positives of this was just the support. Like people actually cared that I felt shitty because I'd lost. And that was cool. So shout out to everyone that reached out. I'm beyond grateful for all the messages and all the support. Now, today I woke up feeling pretty average, stomach's not the best, couldn't finish my breakfast. Both my calves feel like they've been kicked by horses. Um, and I've decided to do this recap. So, 3 weeks' time, I run 100 kilometers through the Blue Mountains at UTA 100. So, I'm keen to lock in and train for that. For now, I can't be on my legs too much because of my calves, so I'll hit some recovery. But that is what the future holds. I can tell you right now, there is no way in hell I DNF from UTA 100. I will crawl over the line if I have to. Um, yeah, that is my mindset going forward. I can't wait to put in some training for this, recap the UTA training, and then participate in the biggest, hardest event I've ever done, and do that with one of my friends, Zach, as well. And, people supporting me. So there was so many lessons learnt in this DNF, one that I thought I would never have, especially so early. I want to say sorry to the people that I was pacing, although I did see a lot of them at the finish line and they were so thankful for me. I got them through 26 perfect kilometres, and for that they were so grateful, and I managed to pass them on to another pacer so that their race wasn't affected. So that is the main thing about the day, that the people that I was with were not affected from my poor performance. I'm going to try and think about how this all went wrong. I'm not sure if it was the shoes or why my calves and feet were in so much pain, like a couple kilometers into the race. But I don't want to linger on it too much. So thank you for listening. DNFing is a thing that happens to everyone, I think. If you do not DNF, you are one crazy MF. So for the future, I'll use this as fuel for the fire. 3 weeks' time, we run 100 kilometers through the Blue Mountains. Thank you, everyone, for the support. No serious injuries to report, which is a big positive. So let's get stuck into training for the next 3 weeks, although a deload happens very soon. And I can't wait to wrap up what is going to be an awesome race at UTA 100.